The thin blue line flag saw a huge surge in popularity when black people started marching against police brutality. I don't think that's a coincidence. But what I really want to engage in with most is a concept called Copaganda, which brings us to an old TV show called Dragnet.
All right, here we go. Stick with me through this part, man. Stick with me through this part, because this is what's up. This is really interesting to see, especially if you're an old fucker like me. Okay? Stick with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
If you look at like early 1900s films or like the 1910s, you run into stuff like the Keystone Cops, Charlie Chaplin. These are people, Buster Keaton. These are people who are not exactly liking the police. And that stuff's going on for a while. And then when they move to television, it's like one of the first big TV shows in the 50s, Jack Webb decides, I'm going to work with the police. I'm going to work with the LAPD. I'm going to give them something that is very, quote unquote, authentic.
The story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Authenticity is the calling card of cop shows and of Copaganda, is this idea that this is the real story. These are real cases.
These are their stories.
Webb gets all of this equipment from the police. He gets to look at real case files. He gets to do all this stuff for free. So all of that becomes way cheaper and thus more profitable. And all he's got to do, all Jack Webb's got to do, is send every script to the LAPD for censorship and approval.
What? I didn't know that. They sent the scripts to the LAPD for censorship and approval. What the fuck? I had no idea that happened. Like, I'm as culpable as the next person watching these freaking... Dude, I'm such a hypocrite. Police dramas, true crime, fucking shows about the CIA, and I hate the fucking CIA. But I probably watch Homeland like 5 times. Like, I'm an absolute hypocrite, right? So when I say all cops are bastards, it includes all of them too, you know? Like, it's ingrained in my brain. I get it. And learning to separate the realities of these things and what's being shoved down my throat and in my brain. I don't know if I'm from television and fantasy and Copaganda. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do it. I don't know if I'm mentally capable of being able to do it. I don't even know if I have the willingness to do it. But like, I'm aware of it, man. And you should be aware of it too, really. Especially when it's like broken out to you at this level of what was actually going on and what is going on around it. I know I'm late to the party on this. I'm late to most parties, but like, I'm here.
Before Dragnet, the depiction of police in the media mostly aligned with what the Luxau report had to say. Charlie Chaplin, the Keystone Cops, even Bugs Bunny cartoons showed a negative public sentiment toward the police. Dragnet changed that. Dragnet began a legacy of Copaganda where people's understanding of policing stopped being what was actually happening in the streets and started being what we see on TV right now. And since most people don't regularly interact with the police, as we said earlier, and when they do, it's often a mostly positive experience, the reality of what police are to those who interact with them the most, aka the poor, is pretty much not understood. And for over half a century, we've been inundated with Copaganda, from the cop shows of the 60s and 70s to the action cops of the 80s and 90s to the procedural dramas of the 2000s and beyond. And now even the neo-Copaganda of Marvel and Disney, where the heroes are still cops, but they also have superpowers and they make funny jokes.
Hello, girl, kick your ass.
Cop shows contribute to the myth of the thin blue line, which is that aforementioned idea that police are the only protection good law-abiding citizens have from a world of depraved criminals who want nothing but to harm them.
Joe Friday is the main character, and he is just perfect. Like, he never shoots his gun. When he does, it's one shot. He never misses. He's very clinical. He's very cold. He's very calm.
I took the money from people who had it and gave it to those who didn't. What do you think, Sergeant?
What's that?
Was I wrong?
He never gets emotional. He always gets the right guy. He's just perfect. You know, he's like the ideal of what you would want in a detective. Not realistic at all, obviously, and bought and paid for by the LAPD. Then there's also like a lot of Thin Blue Line stuff going on. So they'll talk about how there's crime right around, there's crime every day. It's threatening our city, but good thing we have Mr. Joe Friday. These are real stories. We've changed the names to protect the innocent, but this is what's going on, guys.
Yeah, and
LAPD's got you.
Shows like Cops used to put that reality on in full display. Shows like Law and Order gave us.
Law and Order is one that's going to get a lot of you. Law and Order is the one that's going to get a lot of you. Gets me a little bit. You know, one of the ones for me, though, too, is that fucking Die Hard. I love that shit. I love that whole series. Even the bad ones. We watch them every holiday. But he's a fucking cop, too, right? I mean, his buddy, the big black guy, that cop, I love Die Hard, man. Doesn't mean I can't watch it and can't enjoy it, but it's kind of like I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Especially the one I make. It's the size of a fucking meatball. I'll tell you that right now. But like, I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Let's not kid myself. I know how much sugar is in that thing and how it's not really good for me. I can pretend all I want about all that protein in that peanut butter. But I'm not eating like peanut butter I made at home. That's some Skippy extra chunky. And I know as much as I put on and as much jelly as I put on, how much sugar I'm taking in. I just got to be honest about it.
Dramatic, heinous examples of the worst things that could happen, but justice is served by the end of the show. And shows like The Wire and We Own the Night present a critical eye toward policing that still eventually reinforces the Thin Blue Line myth. And even outside of that frame, we have shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Reno 911 that make cops funny.
Tell me why.
Ain't nothing but a heartache.
Tell me why.
Ain't nothing.
And shows like Paw Patrol that hide the gross reality of what police dogs tend to do in real life and their historical connection to slavery.
It is a show that is very like pro police, obviously. Like the main character is a cop dog. His name is Chase. That's kind of crazy. Let's not leave that unsaid. They keep giving him like gadgets. Like he's got like a drone. He's got like spy gear. He's got all this other stuff. There's like mass surveillance. They know where everything is all the time. Research that I did for the Paw Patrol video, I've done a lot of research on cop stuff and police brutality. That is some of the most horrific shit I've ever read. There were like jugulars broken. People lost their testicles. Like just crazy golf-sized bites being taken out of people's legs for often like not a real, like just in the arrest. Like they're not convicted. There's nothing going on here. Like they might not even be guilty of anything.
Let's keep that in mind. This is happening in the arrest process. Innocent until proven guilty. This is happening in the arrest process. You haven't been charged and convicted of anything yet when this is going on. That's fucking bad, dude. That's bad. Like, don't get me, well, if you weren't doing something wrong, that wouldn't happen to you. Bad shit happens to good, innocent people every goddamn day. Just looking at the news feed that's coming through my phone while I'm making this video. Right now, the news updates. Right now, today, bad things are happening to good and innocent people every day.
There's nothing.
Chan's when you're back, kid. You're under arrest, okay?
All of these shows and movies promote an image of policing and crime that just isn't real and doesn't even make sense most of the time. However, with these images everywhere, with people engaging with the police through TV more than real life, the fiction becomes reality. And we think this is how policing works, and it definitely is not. As I said earlier, the police don't solve many crimes, and they don't have a legal obligation to protect people. And research has consistently found that more police and the amount of police have little to no effect on crime. There is research that indicates that focused deterrent strategies, AKA putting more police in high crime neighborhoods, has some effect on reducing crime. But then we have to engage with the whole other body of research that shows the consequence of over-policing poor communities, AKA rises in police brutality brutality, the prison population, community disinvestment, you know, the whole problem of the 94 crime bill. I see multiple cop cars whenever I leave my house, and I don't feel any safer. Further, a fraction of the money being spent to over-police high-crime areas could be better used to actually funnel resources into those areas with far greater social benefit at a cheaper price. But
it's kind of like all the people right now on both sides of the political spectrum that are waking up to the fact that our U.S. government is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to overseas as aid and military aid to two specific regions, the Ukraine and Israel, right? To support what is going on over there, the wars that are going on over there. The one place there's a war, the other is just a freaking genocide. And people on both sides of the political spectrum, in fact, the vast majority of Americans do not want that to happen. They would much rather have those resources spent, the resources spent, if we have money to send here in this country to solve the problems we have here. This is the same thing. This is the same thing. It is the militarization of police departments and the amount of money that each city spends on this stuff that drains and keeps us from having some of the other resources that we need as a society. I mean, it's not that far of a stretch. I mean, look at that shit. Every major city has that. And now it's not just major cities, it's smaller communities. We have this going on in the wealthiest country in the history of this planet. And what do we spend our money on? There's a reason why the Copaganda continues to happen. It's so you don't bitch. They pump you full of the fear that we need this to be the case. Not enough people that look like me are bitching about it. And so they get to just keep funneling the money where they want it to go instead of where it needs to fucking go. It's not that complicated, guys. It's not that complicated.
Reality is these systems aren't meant to benefit society, they're meant to control it. And the thing is, this is not some like left-wing nonsense. This is not some, critical theory extrapolation. This is well understood, constantly reproduced research. The Department of Justice just released a report on the Minneapolis Police Department where George Floyd and many other innocent unarmed people have been murdered. And it showed a clear pattern of repeated abuses and violations that they've known about for decades. But that's not unique. Pretty much anywhere where the DOJ or anyone has investigated the police, they found the exact same things: rampant abuses of power, ingrained racism, and a lack of accountability. And again, this isn't something we're subtly aware of. 60 plus years of sociological and criminological research on crime has told us over and over that the greatest predictor of crime is poverty and community dysfunction. And thus, the best way to reduce crime is to increase the quality of life in high crime areas.
And order have broken down in Detroit, Michigan. Pillage, looting, murder, and arson have nothing to do with civil rights.
This is the year I was born. This is the world I was born into. This time, 1967, the Detroit riots, civil unrest, Vietnam War ramping up. This is when I was born. And this is all I've ever known. So this stuff has been force-fed to me from the time I was on my mama's teat. Okay? And I know most of you watching, it's the same. But like this right now, what you're about to see, what was as on the news and happening in our country the year I was born.
John. Hello, Mr. President. How are you? I'm fine, thank you, sir. John, you know what I think of you, don't you? I certainly do, Mr. President, and vice versa. I've got to ask you now to act like a the good American I believe you to be. I'm going to seriously consider appointing a small group of 7 or 9 tonight to look into the cause of these disorders. I want nothing but competence, and I want nothing but compassion, and I want nothing but patriotism. The commission will investigate the origins of the disorders in our cities. It will make recommendations to me, to the Congress, to the state governors, to the mayors for measures to prevent or contain such disasters.
The President's Advisory Commission on Civil Disorder warned that race hatred threatened to tear this country apart.
What white Americans have never fully understood, but what could never forget, is that white society is deeply impacted in the ghetto. White institutions created it. White institutions maintain it. And white society condones it.
This is important. Again, I know I keep saying all these things are important, but it's incredibly important. And before you come at me with your politics and your Republican or Democrat, remember, okay, I'm a leftist, and it's Democrats. Clinton, Democrat. Lyndon B. Johnson, Democrat. A lot of these things happened under Democratic fucking regimes. Democratic cities, liberal cities, okay? So it's not a red and white, red and blue. It's everywhere. It's ingrained in our economy. This is about poverty. This is about racism. This is about capitalism. This is about propaganda. And it's about funneling money away from the places and the people that needed it and putting it into the pockets of rich people over and over and over again, because money is power, and people that have power ain't fucking giving it up anytime soon.
One of the things that they dispense with, early on, is the idea that you just need to reform police. And they said, like, look, no, this is about housing, this is about education, this is about healthcare, this is about media, this is about employment and unemployment, all of the institutions that really relate to life outcomes. And when they kind of walk through the data of the systemic differentiation between how those institutions interacted with Black people and how they interacted with white people, or how they interacted with non-white people, they just came to this holistic understanding, of the problem. And they were saying, well, you can't really talk about policing without also talking about unemployment. And you can't talk about unemployment without talking about education. You can't talk about education without talking about housing.
Among the ingredients of this mixture are pervasive discrimination and segregation in employment, education, housing, which have resulted in the continuing exclusion of great number from the benefit of economic progress. Black in-migration and white exodus, which have produced the massive and growing concentrations of impoverished in our major cities, creating a growing crisis of deteriorating facilities and services and unmet human needs.
It's the same things we've been saying forever. They found it way back in 1968. The findings were so scathing to the lack of real effort by the government to heal the wounds of racism that the report had to leak out of the relatively progressive Lyndon B. Johnson administration. They didn't want the truth to come out about their own findings.
See, he's saying it right there. What I said earlier. It had the relatively progressive administration of Lyndon B. Johnson. And the report had to be leaked out. See, the dishonesty, it's constant.
The Kerner Commission report is not new science. You can go to any ghetto in the world, in the entire world, South America, South Africa, South Asia, Eastern Europe. You'll find people in dire straits ripping each other apart for the sake of survival. And in every situation, the same solutions are prescribed: social support, community investment, healthcare, education. Yet, whether it's Joe Biden in 1994 or Joe Biden in 2020, you still see our government officials peddling the lie that we need a better trained and better funded police force to address crime, and somehow the failures of policing.
I know most cops and their families are good, decent, honorable people, the vast majority. We have to do better. Give law enforcement the real training they need. Hold them to higher standards. Help them succeed in keeping us safe.
The fallacy of the existence of modern policing is well documented. There will be some books in the description, but just in the last month or so since this video was in production, other big YouTubers like Big Joel, Some More News, Philosophy Tube have made videos detailing lots of new evidence as to why policing is bad. And Skip Intro has a whole series on Copaganda that is well worth your time. I appreciate them because the reality is that Black people have been telling this same fucking story to the whole country for several generations now, and it's fallen on deaf ears. It's been in our music.
That's my fault too, right? They've been telling this story. They've been telling this story for years, and it's fallen on deaf ears, and my ears used to be deaf. And they're not so much anymore. They're not so much anymore. And I apologize, like I said before. I apologize I'm late to the party, but I finally got here. And, I'm glad I am, and I hope you guys have me. So anyways, I could go on and on forever, but we've been almost an hour and a half today, and I got some other shit I want to do.